The kid was crying in a puddle that was 50% rainwater and 50% questionable street runoff, and my first thought wasn't, oh no, a lost child. It was, great, another Tuesday where I make catastrophically bad decisions. I should have kept walking. I had exactly zero qualifications for dealing with other people's problems when my own life was actively collapsing like a soggy cardboard box. But there he was, this tiny human in clothes that probably cost more than my rent, sobbing like the world was ending in the nastiest corner of 5th Street. My day had already been a dumpster fire. Got fired from Brew Haven this morning because I accidentally served Margaret's decaf instead of regular. How was I supposed to know Margaret was the manager's ex-wife? How was I supposed to know their divorce was so bitter that caffeinating her incorrectly was grounds for immediate termination? Then I came home to find my ceiling had finally made good on its threat to leak. Directly onto my bed. My only bed. The water was still dripping when I left, creating this sad little puddle on my mattress that perfectly summarized my existence. And I'd just spent my last $8, on instant ramen that I didn't notice was expired until I got home. Best by date, March 2023. It was September 2025. So yeah. Finding a lost kid? Just another entry in the diary of Eris Moretti's absolute garbage life. Hey, I said, crouching down. Rain plastered my hair to my face. You okay? The boy looked up at me with eyes the color of honey, tears streaming down his cheeks. He couldn't have been more than 7. I'm lost, he wailed, like this was a Shakespearean tragedy. Yeah, I got that. I glanced around. 5th Street at night wasn't exactly prime real estate for wandering children. Or anyone with a survival instinct. Where are your parents? I don't know. More wailing. The kid had lungs on him. I should call someone. Except my phone had been shut off 3 days ago for non-payment. And I had this thing about calling authorities, a bad experience with PAC services 2 years ago that still made my stomach twist. They'd looked at my Omega status, my crappy apartment, my lack of PAC affiliation, and treated me like I was already a criminal. The boy was staring at me with those big eyes, shivering in his soaked designer jacket. Come on, I heard myself say. Let's get you dry. Future heiress was going to kill present heiress for this. My apartment smelled like mildew and defeat. The boy, Kieran, he informed me primly, walked in and stopped dead. Why does it smell like sadness and old socks? I blinked. Excuse me? He pointed at the corner. Is that mold or abstract art? It's mold, I admitted. And character. Mostly mold. Kieran examined my apartment like a health inspector who'd lost faith in humanity. He was still dripping on my floor, leaving puddles on the warped linoleum. I grabbed my last clean towel, my only good towel, and wrapped it around him. You need to get out of those wet clothes, I said. I'll find you something. What I found was an oversized t-shirt that said, I survived the 2020s, barely, and a pair of sweatpants with a broken drawstring. Kieran looked at them like I'd offered him a garbage bag. These are poor people clothes, he said solemnly. Yeah, well, I'm a poor people. I pointed toward the bathroom. Go change. Try not to judge the shower grout too harshly. While he changed, I assessed my situation. I had a strange child in my apartment. No phone. No money. No plan. The universe's most expired ramen sitting on my counter like a monument to bad choices. Kieran emerged looking like a tiny sad orphan from a Victorian novel. The shirt hung to his knees. He'd rolled the sweatpants up about 17 times. Are you hungry? I asked. His face brightened. Yes. Do you have anything good? I showed him the ramen. He studied it like it was a museum exhibit on poverty. What is this? Dinner. What's in it? Sodium. Regret. Technically it's chicken flavored. Kieran's nose wrinkled. I don't eat poor people food. Then you don't eat. We stared at each other. The kid had a stubborn set to his jaw that probably worked great on his real family. It wasn't working on me. I'd been poor too long to be impressed by a 7-year-old's hunger strike. Fine, he said eventually, climbing onto my one wobbly chair. But if I die, it's your fault. Noted. I boiled water in my ancient kettle and prepared the sodium bomb while Kieran provided commentary. Where did I get my furniture? The trash? Yes. Why was there only one chair? Had I considered that guests might want to sit? I didn't have guests. Why did my TV look like it was from the 1990s? Because it was. You ask a lot of questions for someone eating charity ramen, I said, sliding the bowl toward him. He poked it suspiciously with the fork. Took the tiniest possible bite. Made a face like I'd poisoned him. This tastes like sadness, he announced. Yeah, well, that's the house special. Despite his complaints, he ate the entire bowl. Then looked around hopefully for more. I gave him my portion, because apparently I was a complete sucker for sad children with designer expectations. So, I said, sitting on the floor since he'd claimed my only chair. What happened? How'd you get lost? Kieran's face crumpled. For a second I thought the waterworks were starting again. But he pulled himself together, this little kid trying so hard to be brave. I was with my guard, he said quietly. At the market. And there were so many people, and I saw this toy I wanted, and I let go of his hand. Just for a second. His voice got smaller. When I turned around, he was gone. Everyone was gone. And I didn't know where I was. My heart squeezed. I knew that fear. The terror of being small and lost and alone. It's okay, I said. We'll figure it out. Tomorrow we'll find someone who can help, okay? Can I stay here tonight? He looked around the apartment with less judgment now. More hope. Just one night? Yeah. Just one night. That was my second catastrophically bad decision of the day. Kieran fell asleep on my couch, which was really just a futon that had given up on life. I threw my least moldy blanket over him and watched his face relax in sleep. He looked less like a snobby rich kid and more like what he was, a scared little boy who wanted to go home. I needed to give him a bath first thing in the morning. He was still crusty with street puddle and general city grime. The thought made me glance at the bathroom, at the drip 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 of my ceiling leak now forming a puddle near the toilet. Right. Bath. Tomorrow. After I figured out how to find this kid's family without involving authorities. Kieran had promised me repeatedly that his family was very rich and would buy me a new ceiling and socks without holes if I helped him. The kid was a born negotiator. I'd almost believed him until I remembered I was a chronically unlucky Omega whose life peaked in middle school. I grabbed my own blanket, thin, worn, with a hole the size of my fist, and tried to get comfortable on the floor. Rain hammered against my window. The leak had graduated to a steady stream. This was fine. Everything was fine. I just harbored a random child for the night. What could possibly go wrong? Morning came with weak sunlight and Kieran standing over me like a tiny, judgmental ghost. You sleep on the floor? Good morning to you too, sunshine. Do you have breakfast? Real breakfast? Not expired sadness? I hauled myself up, every bone protesting. I have. I checked my cabinets. Half a granola bar and some questionable yogurt. Kieran looked like he might cry again. My family has chefs. 3 of them. They make eggs 6 different ways. Cool. Want the granola bar or not? While he ate his half of the world's saddest breakfast, I ran water for a bath. My bathtub had seen better days, like, better decades, but it would work. I needed to get the street grime off him before we ventured out to find help. Bath time, I called. Kieran appeared in the doorway, eyeing the tub suspiciously. Is that safe? It's water. It's fine. Get in. I turned around to give him privacy while he undressed. Heard the splash of him climbing in. Turned back to find him sitting in the water looking miserable and pathetic. "This is the worst bath ever," he informed me. "You're welcome." I grabbed the bar of soap, my only soap, because apparently I collected only things, and started working on the mud caked in his hair. He squirmed and complained and generally made the process as difficult as possible. "Hold still," I said, trying to scrub behind his ears. He twisted away, and that's when I saw it. On the back of his neck, just below his hairline, was a birthmark. Shaped like a crescent moon. Perfectly formed, like someone had drawn it there. My hands froze. No. No, 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 no. I'd read enough trashy paranormal romance novels during my optimistic phase. I knew what that mark meant. The crescent crown. The symbol of the lunar pack's royal bloodline. This wasn't just some rich kid. This was the rich kid. The alpha heir. The future pack leader. The most protected, most valuable, most definitely not supposed to be an my crappy apartment child in the entire territory. "Are you okay?" Kieran asked, watching me with concern. "You look sick." I couldn't breathe. My vision was tunneling. I was going to pass out. I was going to pass out in my bathroom while giving the alpha heir a bath in my disgusting tub with my only soap. "I'm fine," I wheezed. "Totally fine. Everything's fine." Everything was not fine. I'd kidnapped the alpha heir. They were going to kill me. Pack justice for endangering the heir was swift and brutal. Never mind that I'd helped him. Never mind that I'd given him my food and my towel and my only good blanket. They'd see a lone Omega with the prince and assume the worst. "Can I have that imported chocolate now?" Kieran asked hopefully. I slid down the wall, my back against the cabinet, trying to remember how to breathe. Kieran continued sitting in the bath, using my last towel, my only good towel, to wash his face, completely unaware that he'd just ended my life. "Do you have imported chocolate?" he pressed. "From Switzerland? Or Belgium?" "No," I managed. "I don't even have domestic chocolate. I don't have anything. I have expired ramen and broken dreams, and now I have the future alpha in my bathtub and I'm going to die." Kieran tilted his head, confused. "You're not going to die. My family will be happy you helped me. They'll probably give you a reward." "A reward?" "Sure. After they finished questioning why I hadn't called the authorities immediately. After they finished investigating every second he spent in my apartment. After they finished deciding whether an Omega with nothing to lose might have had ulterior motives." I dropped my head between my knees, trying not to hyperventilate. This was it. This was how Eris Moretti's terrible, unlucky, catastrophically bad life finally ended. Not with a bang, but with a 7-year-old asking for imported chocolate in her mold-infested bathroom. "Can I get out now?" Kieran asked. "The water's getting cold." I looked up at him, at this tiny, innocent kid who had no idea the bomb he'd just dropped into my life, and did the only thing I could do. I started laughing. Or crying. Honestly, at this point, I couldn't tell the difference. Chapter 2. The news broke at 6 a.m. I know this because I hadn't slept. I'd spent the entire night sitting on my floor, staring at Kieran's sleeping face, having a slow-motion panic attack that lasted approximately 7 hours. When my neighbor's TV blared through our paper-thin walls, I heard it. The emergency broadcast tone. Then a voice, tight with barely controlled terror: "The Lunar Pack has issued a code Obsidian alert. Prince Kieran Thorne, heir to the Alpha throne, has been missing for over 24 hours. I scrambled from my neighbor's wall, pressing my ear against it. Alpha King Declan Thorne has mobilized all pack forces. A reward of $5 million is being offered for information leading to the prince's safe return. The Alpha King has issued a statement that anyone withholding information will be charged with treason against the pack. $5 million. Treason. I was going to vomit. Additionally, the city has implemented emergency protocols. All public transportation is suspended. A curfew is in effect from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. Citizens are urged to check their security footage and report any sightings. The broadcast continued, but I'd stopped breathing. Code Obsidian. That was the highest level of pack emergency, reserved for existential threats. Wars. Plagues. Apparently, one lost prince. I looked at Kieran, still sleeping peacefully on my futon, wrapped in my least moldy blanket, one small hand curled under his cheek. He looked so normal. So innocent. So completely not like someone whose disappearance had triggered a citywide manhunt. My phone was still shut off. I had no way to call anyone, which was actually good because I was pretty sure anything I said right now would be incriminating. Hi, yes, I have the prince. I found him yesterday but didn't report it because of my crippling mistrust of authority. Please don't execute me. Yeah. That would go great. Kieran stirred, yawning. His eyes fluttered open and he smiled at me, this sweet, trusting smile that made me want to wrap him in bubble wrap and hide him from the world. Good morning, he said cheerfully. Do you have any breakfast that isn't expired? We need to talk, I said. I don't understand why you're upset, Kieran said, watching me pace. My family will be happy you helped me. Kieran. I stopped, turned to face him. Do you know what a code obsidian is? He shook his head, swinging his legs from the futon. It means your dad thinks something terrible happened to you. It means the entire city is looking for you. It means I'm harboring the most wanted child in the territory, and if anyone finds out, I'm dead. You're not dead. He said it so matter-of-factly, like he was correcting my math homework. You're right here. I will become dead. That's my point. My dad wouldn't hurt you. You helped me. I laughed. It came out slightly unhinged. Kieran, I'm an unmated Omega with no pack affiliation who kept the Alpha heir in her apartment overnight without reporting it. Your dad is going to assume I kidnapped you. But you didn't. I know I didn't. But it looks like I did. Kieran considered this, his little face scrunched in thought. So we should tell him you didn't. Oh, sure. I'll just walk up to the Alpha King and explain. I'm sure that'll go great. Hey, Your Majesty, I know your son was missing and you've been going insane with worry, but I was too anxious to call anyone, so I just kept him in my mold apartment and fed him expired ramen. Please don't kill me. The ramen wasn't that bad, Kieran offered. I started pacing again. My apartment was too small for proper pacing. I could only take about 4 steps before hitting a wall, but I was managing. Think, Eris. Think. I could take him to a pack station. Just drop him off and run. But they had cameras. They'd see me. They'd find me. I could leave him somewhere public and call in an anonymous tip. Except my phone was shut off and pay phones didn't exist anymore. I could. Can we have breakfast first? Kieran asked. Before you finish panicking? I looked at him. At this 7-year-old who'd somehow stayed calm while I spiraled. Who'd survived being lost and scared and ending up with the world's unluckiest Omega. Yeah, I said, my voice softer. Yeah, we can have breakfast. Breakfast was half a granola bar, mine, and some questionable yogurt, his. Kieran ate without complaint this time, which I appreciated. While he ate, I tried to formulate a plan that didn't end with my execution. Why did you run away? I asked suddenly. Kieran's spoon stopped halfway to his mouth. His face did something complicated, a flash of hurt quickly covered by a child's attempt at being brave. I didn't run away, he said quietly. I got lost. Kieran. He stared at his yogurt. I heard them talking. The council members. They came to the palace and I was hiding under the meeting table. I like to hide there sometimes. It's got this tablecloth that goes all the way down, and they were talking about me. What did they say? His voice got smaller. They said my dad should send me away. To a training facility. Because I'm too soft for an alpha heir. Because I cry too much. Because I'm not. He swallowed hard. Because I'm not strong like my dad. My heart cracked right down the middle. And then my dad said, Kieran's voice broke. He said maybe they were right. Maybe I did need proper training. And I got scared. So when we went to the market, I thought maybe if I got lost, I could just not go back. Oh, gods. I knelt in front of him, taking his small hands in mine. Kieran, listen to me. Your dad is looking for you right now. He's terrified. That doesn't sound like someone who wants to send you away. But he said. Sometimes parents say things they don't mean. Especially when other people are pressuring them. I squeezed his hands gently. I promise you, whatever your dad said in that meeting, he's regretting it now. He wants you home. Kieran's eyes welled up. My mom died. Last year. And my dad, he got scary after. Not scary like he'd hurt me, he added quickly. Scary like he was far away. Like he was sad all the time but pretending not to be. And I tried to be good, I tried to be strong, but I kept messing up and I thought. He dissolved into tears, and I pulled him into my arms, letting him sob into my shoulder. This poor kid. This poor, traumatized kid who'd lost his mom and felt like he was losing his dad too. It's okay, I murmured, rubbing his back. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to cry. That doesn't make you weak. We stayed like that for a long time, this little boy crying in my arms while I tried not to cry myself. My omega instincts were going haywire. Protect, comfort, keep safe. Never mind that keeping him here was probably the most dangerous thing I could do. When his sobs finally subsided, he pulled back, wiping his nose on his sleeve. Sorry, he mumbled. Don't be sorry. You're allowed to feel things. My dad says alphas need to be strong. Your dad is wrong. Everyone needs to feel things. That's what makes us human. Well, werewolf. You know what I mean. Kieran managed a watery smile. Then his face shifted, going distant in a way that made my skin prickle. He's sad right now, Kieran said softly. What? My dad. I can hear him sometimes. In my head. Not words exactly, but feelings. Kieran's eyes were unfocused, looking at something I couldn't see. He's in the garden. Mom's garden. He's talking to her portrait. The hair on my arm stood up. You can hear your dad's thoughts? Sometimes. When feelings are really big. Kieran tilted his head, listening to something only he could hear. He's saying he failed. That he pushed me away because he didn't know how to be a dad without mom. That he should have hugged me more. That he's sorry. Oh, gods. My heart was doing acrobatics in my chest. He's crying, Kieran whispered. My dad never cries. But he's crying now. I sat back on my heels, processing this. The terrifying Alpha King, the most powerful werewolf in the territory, was sobbing in a garden at, I checked my neighbor's clock, 7:15 a.m., pouring his heart out to a portrait of his dead wife. This wasn't a manhunt led by a tyrant. This was a desperate father looking for his son. We need to get you home, I said firmly. But you said. I know what I said. But your dad needs you. And you need him. We'll figure out the rest. Kieran nodded, looking relieved. Can I open the window first? The air quality in here is really bad. No. No windows. We're staying low-key until I figure out how to. He'd already crossed to the window. Kieran, don't. He opened it. The air quality is terrible, he shouted to no one in particular. I yanked him back, slamming the window shut. What did I just say about staying low-key? What's low-key? I was going to have an aneurysm. By noon, I'd managed to keep Kieran relatively hidden, which was an achievement considering he had the self-preservation instincts of a lemming. He kept trying to order pizza, just tell them to bring it to this address, critiquing my wardrobe, do you own anything that isn't sad, and asking if we could go outside, just for a little bit. No pizza, no outside, and my clothes are fine, I said for the 7th time. Your hoodie has 3 holes in it. Character holes. That's not a thing. It is now. I was stress-eating my way through the expired ramen, at this point, what was a little food poisoning, when someone knocked on my door. I froze. Kieran froze. We stared at each other in mutual panic. Another knock, more insistent. Eris? You in there? Oh, no. Oh, no 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 no. That was Marcus's voice. My ex-boyfriend Marcus. Marcus, who I'd dated for 6 terrible months before realizing he had the emotional depth of a puddle. Marcus, who still had my spare key because I'd never gotten around to asking for it back. Don't answer it, Kieran whispered. I'm not going to. The door opened. Because of course Marcus still had the key. Because the universe hated me. Marcus walked in, and I watched his face go through several stages of confusion. First, he looked at me, disheveled, holding a bowl of expired ramen, clearly having a breakdown. Then he looked at Kieran, who was wearing my oversized hoodie like a dress, the sleeves hanging past his hands, looking absolutely ridiculous. Then recognition hit. Is that? Marcus's eyes went wide. Is that the prince? No. I tried. Yes. Kieran said cheerfully. And she's poor but very nice. Kieran. Marcus closed the door behind him slowly, his face cycling through shock, confusion, and something that looked worryingly like calculation. Eris, he said carefully. Why do you have the alpha heir in your apartment? It's complicated. I could get so much money for turning you in. My stomach dropped. You're not going to. I'm thinking about it. Marcus. I stepped between him and Kieran, my omega instincts flaring. You can't. Please. It's not what it looks like. It looks like you kidnapped a prince. I didn't. He was lost and I helped him, and now I'm trying to figure out how to get him home without getting executed. Marcus stared at me. Then at Kieran. Then back at me. This is insane. This is actually insane. Even for you, Eris, this is. His dad doesn't want him, Kieran interrupted quietly. We both turned to look at him. That's not true, I said gently. He said maybe I should go away. For training. Kieran's voice wobbled. Because I'm too soft. Marcus's face did something complicated. He'd always been good with kids, one of his few redeeming qualities. Kid, I promise you, your dad wants you home. The whole city is losing its mind looking for you. But he said. Parents say stupid things sometimes. Marcus crouched down to Kieran's level. Trust me. I said plenty of stupid things to Eris, and I regretted most of them. Not the time, Marcus, I muttered. My point is, Marcus continued, your dad is scared. Scared people say dumb stuff. But that doesn't mean he doesn't love you. Kieran considered this. Then his face went distant again, that eerie unfocused look. He's still in the garden, Kieran said softly. He hasn't moved. He's just sitting there. Talking to Mom. Saying he doesn't know how to do this without her. That he misses her. That he misses me. Marcus looked at me. I looked at Marcus. We both felt our hearts crack in stereo. Well, crap, Marcus said finally. Now I'm emotionally invested. Right? We have to get him home. I know. But if we just show up with him, they'll arrest you. I know. We stood there, the 3 of us in my terrible apartment, trying to figure out how to solve this impossible problem. Kieran was still listening to his father's thoughts, tears sliding down his cheeks. Marcus was running his hands through his hair, the way he always did when he was thinking. And I was trying not to hyperventilate. "He's so sad," Kieran whispered. I didn't know he was this sad. I thought he was just mad at me. But he's sad. He misses me so much. "Then we get you to him," I said firmly. "Whatever it takes." "They'll charge you with treason," Marcus pointed out. "Then they'll charge me with treason. But I'm not keeping him from his dad another second." Marcus looked at me with something like respect. Or possibly disbelief that I could be this stupid. Hard to tell with him. "You always did have terrible survival instincts," he said. "It's one of my many charms." "So what's the plan?" I looked at Kieran, at this brave little boy who'd been through so much. Who'd lost his mom and thought he was losing his dad. Who'd ended up with the unluckiest Omega in the city and somehow trusted me anyway. "We take him to the palace," I said. "We walk right up to the front gates and we explain everything. They'll arrest you the second you get close. Probably. You'll be charged with kidnapping at minimum." "Yep. You could go to prison for years." "I'm aware." Marcus shook his head. "You're insane. I'm an Omega who stress-ate expired ramen for breakfast and has the future Alpha King in her apartment wearing her hoodie as a dress. Insanity is kind of my baseline now." Despite everything, Marcus smiled. "I forgot how stubborn you are. It's my second best quality. After my terrible survival instincts." Kieran tugged on my hoodie, his dress. "Will you really take me home? Even if they arrest you?" I knelt down, taking his hands. "I promise. Your dad needs you. And you need him. That's more important than me not going to prison. I don't want you to go to prison. Then we'll have to hope your dad is reasonable. He's an Alpha King who just issued a citywide emergency alert because you're missing," Marcus pointed out. "I'm not sure reasonable is on the table. Then we'll hope for not immediately murderous. That's a low bar. It's the bar we've got." Kieran was still listening to his father, his face soft with sadness. "He's telling Mom he's sorry. That he tried to be strong for me but he just got lost in his grief. And now he's lost me too." My vision blurred. I blinked hard, trying to stay focused. "He's not lost you," I said firmly. "Not yet. We're bringing you home." "When?" I looked at Marcus. He looked at me. We both knew what I was about to say was either the bravest or stupidest thing I'd ever done. "Now," I said. "We're going now." Getting ready to possibly walk into my own arrest was surreal. I changed out of my sadness clothes into my least sad clothes, jeans with only one hole, a sweater that almost looked intentional. Kieran insisted on wearing my hoodie, which hung on him like a ball gown, but I couldn't bring myself to argue. Marcus watched us prepare with the expression of someone watching a car crash in slow motion. "Last chance to back out," he said. "Not backing out. They're going to lock you up." "Probably. You're okay with this?" I looked at Kieran, who was trying to roll up the hoodie's sleeves for the 15th time. "Yeah. I'm okay with this." "Why?" I thought about it. About this kid who'd been lost and scared. About the father who was grieving in a garden, talking to a portrait. About how sometimes the right thing and the smart thing weren't the same thing. "Because somebody has to," I said finally. "And I guess today, that somebody is me." Marcus shook his head, but he was smiling. "You're going to get yourself killed one day. Today might be that day. Want company?" I blinked at him. "What?" "For the walk to the palace." "Want company?" He shrugged. "Figure if you're going down for this, might as well have a witness who can tell them you're just catastrophically stupid, not actually criminal." Despite everything, I felt warmth bloom in my chest. "You do that?" "We dated for 6 months. I know you're an idiot, but you're not a bad person. He paused. Plus, if they do arrest you, someone should be there to tell your side. Marcus. Don't get emotional. It's weird. But I could see it in his face, he was worried. About me. About Kieran. About this whole impossible situation. Thank you, I said quietly. Yeah. Let's go before I remember I have self-preservation instincts. I turned to Kieran. Ready? He nodded, looking small and brave in my oversized hoodie. Ready. Okay. I took a deep breath. Let's go return a prince. We walked toward the door, me, my ex-boyfriend, and the most wanted child in the territory. The morning sun was bright, the city was on lockdown, and I was about to either do the bravest or stupidest thing of my life. Probably both. But looking at Kieran's hopeful face, at the trust in his eyes, I knew I couldn't do anything else. Sometimes you just have to make catastrophically bad decisions and hope they turn out okay. This was one of those times. I opened the door, and we stepped out into the sunlight. The palace was waiting. Chapter 3. Marcus gave me 24 hours. We'd made it 3 blocks from my apartment when he stopped, ran his hands through his hair, and said, I can't do this. I stared at him. What? I can't watch you walk into your own arrest. He looked genuinely pained. Look, I'm giving you 24 hours. Get the kid home however you want, but do it smart. Don't just march up to the palace like some kind of martyr. Marcus. 24 hours, heiress. Figure it out. He looked at Kieran, then back at me. And for what it's worth, you're doing the right thing. Just try not to die for it. Then he walked away, leaving me standing on the corner with a prince in an oversized hoodie and absolutely no plan. Is he coming back? Kieran asked. I don't think so. Are we still going to the palace? I looked down at him, at those honey-colored eyes full of trust one absolutely didn't deserve. Yeah. We're still going. Just, maybe not right this second. We went back to my apartment. I needed to think. To plan. To figure out how to return a prince without getting myself killed or imprisoned or both. I should have known better than to think I'd get 24 hours. I should have known the universe wasn't done laughing at me yet. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, was 78 years old, partially deaf, and had the survival instincts of a hawk. She also had a very strong sense of civic duty and absolutely zero faith in my life choices. I found this out later, when the royal guard was literally breaking down my door. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We made it back to my apartment. I locked the door, like that would help, and tried to think. Kieran sat on the futon, swinging his legs, occasionally reporting on his father's emotional state. He's moved to his study now, Kieran said, that distant look in his eyes. He's looking at pictures. Of me and Mom. He's crying again. My heart was living in a permanent state of breaking. We'll get you to him, I promised. I just need to figure out how to do it without getting arrested. Yeah. That. I spent the afternoon pacing, planning, and stress-eating the last of my questionable yogurt. Kieran entertained himself by critiquing my apartment decor, very minimalist. Is it on purpose, and asking if we could watch TV, do you have cable? No. Netflix? Can't afford it. What do you have? Anxiety. And expired condiments. By evening, I'd formed something resembling a plan. I'd write a letter explaining everything, take Kieran to a public place near the palace, call the tip line from a pay phone, wait, did pay phones still exist, and disappear before anyone could arrest me. It wasn't a good plan. But it was a plan. I should have executed it immediately. Instead, I let Kieran fall asleep on the futon, covered him with my least moldy blanket, and told myself we'd do it first thing in the morning. That was my third catastrophically bad decision. The royal guard broke down my door at 5:47 a.m. I know this because I was awake, staring at my ceiling leak, when I heard Mrs. Chen's voice in the hallway. Yes, officer, that apartment. I heard suspicious child noises. Crying. And the girl who lives there, she's not exactly stable. No job, no pack, always looks like she's one bad day from a breakdown. Thanks, Mrs. Chen. Really feeling the neighborhood solidarity. We've had reports of possible child endangerment, a deep male voice said. We'll need to check. My blood turned to ice. I scrambled out of my floor bed situation, running for the futon where Kieran was still sleeping. I needed to wake him, needed to hide him, needed to. The door exploded inward. Not opened. Exploded. Wood splintered everywhere. My elderly neighbor screamed. And suddenly my apartment was full of werewolves in tactical gear, all of them looking at me like I was a threat to national security. I was wearing my rattiest pajamas, a t-shirt that said, "I'm fine," in increasingly frantic fonts, and had a clay face mask on because I'd been stress-treating my skin at 3 a.m. I pay rent here. I screamed, because apparently that was my priority in this moment. Then I saw him. Alpha King Thorn Blackridge. He filled my doorway like a natural disaster. Easily 6'5", broad-shouldered, with scars running down his neck and the kind of presence that made you want to either submit or run. His eyes were ice blue and currently scanning my apartment with lethal focus. Those eyes landed on the futon. On Kieran. Who was sitting up, rubbing his eyes, looking small and confused in my oversized hoodie. Dad? Kieran said sleepily. The change in Thorn was instantaneous. The lethal Alpha King disappeared, replaced by a father who looked like he'd been drowning and just found air. He crossed my apartment in 3 strides, stepping over my broken door, past me, past his guards, and dropped to his knees in front of the futon. Kieran. His voice cracked. Oh gods, Kieran. Kieran's face crumpled. Dad, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Thorn pulled him into his arms, holding him like he'd never let go. I watched this huge, terrifying Alpha King shake as he buried his face in his son's hair, breathing him in. You're safe, Thorn whispered. You're safe. That's all that matters. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. It was also happening in my apartment while I was wearing a face mask and pajamas with, "I'm fine," written on them in increasingly unhinged fonts. Kieran was crying. Thorn was crying. I was trying not to cry because that would make my face mask run and I had some dignity left. Somewhere. Probably not here, but somewhere. Then Kieran reached out and grabbed my hand. Dad, this is Eris. She saved me. She let me stay here and gave me her food and her towel and her blanket, and she's really nice even though she's very poor. Every guard in the room turned to look at me. So did Thorn. His eyes, those ice blue eyes, locked onto mine, and I felt like I was being x-rayed at the soul level. You took care of my son? His voice was careful. Controlled. Like he was holding back something massive. I fed him expired ramen and let him sleep on a questionable futon, so took care is generous. She's the best. Kieran interrupted, still holding my hand. She taught me about poverty. That's not how I'd phrase it. She said her ceiling has character because it leaks. And her socks have personality holes. Kieran, please. An older man in expensive robes pushed forward. He had silver hair, sharp features, and the expression of someone who just found a bug in his tea. Your Majesty, he said coldly. This Omega kept your son for over 24 hours without reporting it. She should be arrested immediately for kidnapping, child endangerment, and treason against the pack. My stomach dropped to my feet. Cassius, Thorn started. Pack law is clear, Cassius continued. Anyone withholding information about the prince's whereabouts is guilty of treason. The penalty is... No. The word came from Kieran, but it wasn't his normal voice. It was deeper. Resonant. And the walls shook. Actually shook. Plaster dust drifted down from my ceiling. My windows rattled in their frames. The guards stumbled back, and even Thorne looked shocked. Kieran stood on the futon, still wearing my hoodie like a dress, his eyes blazing gold. Alpha power rolled off him in waves, raw, untrained, and absolutely terrifying. "You're not arresting Eris." His voice made the air vibrate. "She helped me. She was nice to me. She gave me her last towel." Everyone stared. Kieran was 7 years old. He shouldn't have this much power. Alphas didn't usually manifest until puberty, and even then, it came gradually. Not like this. Not like a dam breaking. "Kieran," Thorne said carefully. "Son, you need to calm down." "I don't want to calm down. They want to arrest Eris and that's not fair." Another wave of power. My cheap plates rattled off the counter and shattered. "Is he supposed to do that?" I asked weakly. Nobody answered because they were all too busy looking shocked or terrified or both. Thorne stood slowly, approaching his son like you'd approach a spooked horse. "Kieran. Listen to me. Nobody's arresting anyone right now. But you need to breathe. Can you do that for me?" Kieran's eyes were still gold, still blazing with power. But some of the wildness faded. "You promise? You promise you won't let them arrest her?" "I promise we'll talk about it. All of us." Calmly. Thorne glanced at me. "After Miss. I'm sorry, I don't know your name." "Moretti. Eris Moretti." I was still wearing the face mask. This was my life now. After Miss Moretti has a chance to explain what happened. Cassius looked like he wanted to argue, but another look at Kieran, who was still radiating enough power to make the guards nervous, shut him up. The gold faded from Kieran's eyes. He swayed, and Thorne caught him, holding him steady. "Okay," Kieran whispered. "Okay. But I'm holding Eris's hand. So she doesn't get scared." He reached for me again, and I took his hand because what else was I going to do? Say no to the prince who just made my apartment shake with alpha power? So there we stood, a traumatized kid, a broke Omega in a face mask, and a grieving Alpha King, all holding hands in the remains of my apartment. The world's most uncomfortable love triangle. "Perhaps," Thorne said carefully, "we should move this conversation somewhere else." "Can I wash my face first?" I asked. I'm wearing a clay mask and I feel like that's undermining my credibility. Despite everything, Thorne's mouth twitched. Of course. The palace was exactly as intimidating as I'd imagined. They transported us in a motorcade, actual Secret Service-style vehicles, while I sat in the back holding Kieran's hand and trying not to have a panic attack. Thorne sat across from us, his eyes never leaving his son, occasionally flicking to me with an expression I couldn't read. I'd washed my face. I was wearing actual clothes now. They'd let me change, which was decent of them considering they'd broken down my door. But I still felt completely out of my depth. We were escorted to a conference room that was bigger than my entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows, expensive wood table, chairs that probably cost more than my annual income. Cassius sat at one end, radiating disapproval. Guards lined the walls. And Thorne sat at the head of the table with Kieran in his lap, still holding my hand across the table. "Miss Moretti," Thorne began. "I'd like to understand what happened. From the beginning." So I told him. Everything. Finding Kieran in the puddle, taking him home because I couldn't leave him, the expired ramen, the panic attack when I saw the birthmark, the news coverage, Marcus's visit, all of it. I left nothing out, including how catastrophically stupid all my decisions had been. Thorne listened without interrupting. His face was carefully neutral, but I could see the tension in his jaw, the way his hand tightened on Kieran's shoulder. When I finished, there was silence. "So," Cassius said coldly, "you're admitting you harbored the prince for over 24 hours without contacting authorities?" "Yes. Despite multiple emergency broadcasts." Yes. Despite knowing who he was. I didn't know immediately. But yes, once I figured it out, I still didn't call. Then you're guilty. She was scared. Kieran burst out. She thought you'd arrest her. And you are trying to arrest her, so she was right. Kieran, Thorne said gently. Let me handle this. But I know you want to protect Miss Moretti. That's actually very good. But let me talk to her, okay? Kieran subsided, but he didn't let go of my hand. Thorne turned those ice blue eyes on me. You could have called at any point. You could have dropped him at a pack station. Why didn't you? I met his gaze. Because I was terrified. I'm an unmated Omega with no pack, no money, and a history of pack services treating me like I'm already guilty of something. I was scared if I called, you'd assume the worst. That I'd kidnapped him. That I had ulterior motives. I paused. I was scared you'd kill me before I could explain. Something shifted in Thorne's expression. We don't kill people for trying to help. With respect, Your Majesty, you don't know what it's like to be powerless in this city. To have no pack, no protection, no one to vouch for you. I've seen how pack services treat Omegas like me. We're guilty until proven innocent, and sometimes not even then. Silence. She's right, one of the guards said quietly. A woman with kind eyes. I've seen it. Unmated Omegas we don't always treat them fairly. Cassius's face turned red. This is irrelevant. It's not irrelevant, Thorne cut in. His voice was still calm, but there was steel underneath. If Miss Moretti felt she couldn't safely contact authorities, that's a failure on our part. Not hers. She still broke the law. She also saved my son. Thorne looked at me. Kieran says you fed him. Gave him your bed. Kept him safe. I gave him my futon and expired ramen. I'm not sure that counts as. You gave him what you had, Thorne said quietly. Which was more than he needed. He needed someone who gave a damn. And you did. My throat closed up. Dad cried about me, Kieran said suddenly. In Mom's garden. He said he failed as a father. Thorne's face did something complicated. Kieran. You did fail, Kieran continued, with the brutal honesty of children. You got scary after Mom died. You stopped hugging me. You stopped talking to me. And then I heard you say maybe I should go away and I thought. His voice wobbled. I thought you didn't want me anymore. The room felt like all the oxygen had been sucked out. Thorne pulled Kieran closer, his voice rough. I never stopped wanting you. Not for a second. I didn't know how to be your father without your mother. And I thought if I stayed distant, it would hurt less. For both of us. He pressed his forehead to Kieran's. I was wrong. I was so wrong. And I'm sorry. Kieran was crying. Thorne was crying. I was crying. Even some of the guards looked misty-eyed. I don't want to go away, Kieran whispered. I want to stay with you. You're never going away. I don't care what the council says. You're staying with me, and I'm going to do better. I promise. They held each other, and I felt like I was intruding on something private. Something sacred. Then Kieran pulled back, wiping his eyes. Can Eris stay too? Record scratch. Everyone looked at me. What? I said. Can she stay? She doesn't have anywhere else to go. Her apartment has mold and a leaking ceiling and her door is broken now because your guards smashed it. Kieran, I said weakly, I don't think. She took care of me when she didn't have to. We should take care of her. Thorne was looking at me with an expression I couldn't read. Calculating. Considering. That's very kind, I said quickly, but I couldn't possibly. That's when it hit me. The first cramp, deep in my abdomen. A wave of heat that made my skin prickle. The unmistakable scent of an omega going into heat, flooding the room. Oh, gods. Oh gods, oh gods, oh gods. Not now. Not here. Not in front of the Alpha King and his entire guard and the royal advisor Anne. Every alpha in the room went very still. Thorne's eyes widened. His nostrils flared. And I watched, in slow-motion horror, as recognition hit him. True mate recognition. The biological imperative that happened maybe once in 1,000 bonds. The thing that paranormal romance novels were built on. The connection that was supposed to be beautiful and romantic and definitely not happening to me while I was sweating through my clothes in a palace conference room. No, I whispered. No, 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 no. Another cramp. Stronger. I doubled over, still holding Kieran's hand because I apparently couldn't let go even while dying of embarrassment. Miss Moretti, Thorne started. This is literally the worst day of my life, I gasped. Same, Thorne said, looking shell-shocked. The female guard was already moving, grabbing blankets from somewhere, talking about getting me to a heat room. Cassius looked like someone had personally insulted his entire bloodline. The other guards were backing away, giving Thorne and me space because apparently they could smell what was happening and nobody wanted to be caught in the middle of a true mate situation. Does this mean Eris is going to be my new mom? Kieran asked brightly. Cassius made a noise like a dying whale. I need to leave, I said, trying to stand. My legs weren't cooperating. I need to leave right now. You're in heat, Thorne said, his voice strained. You can't go anywhere. Watch me. I tried to stand. Made it about 3 inches before another cramp hit and I collapsed back into the chair. Thorne was on his feet, hovering like he wanted to help but didn't know how. Someone get her to a heat suite. Now. Your Majesty, Cassius said tightly, perhaps we should discuss. Not now, Cassius. The guards were moving. Someone, the kind-eyed woman, was helping me up, supporting my weight. Kieran was still holding my hand, walking beside me, chattering about how this was so exciting, and does this mean we're family now? And Thorne was following us, looking like he'd been hit by a truck, radiating alpha pheromones that were making my heat about 10 times worse. Stop following us, I gasped. I can't. He sounded miserable. True mate bond. I physically can't stay away right now. This is a nightmare. For both of us. I was supposed to go home. Back to my moldy apartment. Instead I'm in heat in a palace and apparently biologically bonded to a king. If it helps, I wasn't planning on finding my true mate today either. I was planning on crying in a garden and wallowing in grief. That doesn't help. I know. We were both yelling now, while guards escorted us through palace hallways and Kieran swung our joined hands like this was a lovely family outing. This is so great. Kieran said. Dad finally stopped being sad and Eris gets to live here and I have a new mom Anne. I'm not your mom. I yelped. Yet, Kieran said confidently. Another cramp. I whimpered. Thorne made a growling noise that was probably supposed to be protective but just made everything worse. Almost there, the female guard said gently. Heat suite is just ahead. What's your name? I gasped. Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. You're my favorite person here. Not me? Kieran asked, wounded. You're a close second. We reached a door. Sarah opened it, revealing a room that looked like a luxury hotel suite designed specifically for heats. Soft lighting, comfortable furniture, a bed that looked like a cloud, temperature controls, a mini fridge probably stocked with heat-friendly snacks. Okay, Sarah said. Miss Moretti, you'll be safe here. We'll post guards outside. No one will bother you. What about him? I pointed at Thorne, who was still hovering in the doorway looking tortured. I'll leave, Thorne said. I'll go far away. Different wing. Different building. Different city. You can't, Sarah said gently. True mate bonds don't work that way, Your Majesty. The separation will hurt. Both of you. I'll deal with it, Thorn gritted out. Dad's really good at dealing with pain in unhealthy ways, Kieran offered helpfully. Not helping, Kieran. Another cramp hit. I grabbed the doorframe, breathing through it. Okay, I said. New plan. Everyone leaves. Especially him. I pointed at Thorn. I'm going to suffer through this heat alone, like I've done every other heat, and then we're going to have a very long conversation about how true mate bonds can be wrong, and we're going to ignore this and pretend it never happened. That's not possible, Sarah said gently. I'm making it possible. Eris, Thorn said quietly. I know this isn't ideal. Not ideal? I spun on him. I spent the last 2 days thinking I was going to be executed for helping your son. I live in an apartment with mold and a leaking ceiling. I eat expired ramen. And now I'm in heat in a palace, apparently biologically bonded to a king, and your son thinks I'm his new mom. This isn't not ideal. This is a cosmic joke. Thorn just looked at me. Those ice blue eyes soft with something that might have been understanding. You're right, he said. This is terrible timing. For both of us. But the bond is real. We can't ignore it. Watch me. Eris. No. I'm going in this room. Alone. And I'm going to deal with this heat by myself. And then we're going to figure out how to break this bond or ignore it or whatever needs to happen so I can go back to my terrible life. I stepped into the heat suite. Turned to close the door. Kieran was still holding my hand. Can I visit? He asked in a small voice. After? When you feel better? My heart cracked. Again. It was becoming a habit. Yeah, I said softly. You can visit. Promise? Promise. He let go of my hand. I closed the door. And then I slid down to the floor and finally let myself fall apart. Because the universe wasn't done laughing at me yet. Not even close. Chapter 4. I woke up in the medical wing feeling like I'd been hit by a truck, backed over for good measure, and then hit again just to make sure I was properly traumatized. Thorn was sitting beside my bed, holding my hand, looking like he hadn't slept in 3 days. His hair was a mess, someone had clearly been running their hands through it repeatedly, and he had that hollow-eyed look of someone who'd been crying and trying very hard to pretend they hadn't. You're awake, he said, his voice rough. Unfortunately. I tried to sit up. Pain shot through my entire body. Ow. Why does everything hurt? Because you went through heat, then immediately challenged the royal advisor to combat despite having zero combat training, then got thrown into a wall hard enough to crack the stone. Right. That. Memory came flooding back in painful waves. The claiming ceremony. Cassius's coup attempt. The trial by combat that I'd invoked in a moment of pure panic and zero forethought. Did we win? I asked. If by we you mean Kieran's emerging alpha power broadcasted Cassius's entire evil monologue to the assembled court, then yes. We won. So I didn't actually defeat him in combat. You bought enough time for Kieran to save everyone while also giving Cassius enough rope to hang himself with his own villain speech. I'd call that a victory. I flopped back against the pillows. I'm the worst fighter in the history of fighting. You challenged someone to combat. That you couldn't win. To protect your pack. Thorn's hand tightened on mine. That's not weakness. That's courage. That's stupidity. Sometimes they're the same thing. I looked at him, really looked at him. At the dark circles under his eyes, the tension in his jaw, the way he was holding my hand like he was afraid I'd disappear. How long was I out? 2 days. 2, Thorn, you need to sleep. I did sleep. A little. Here. He gestured vaguely at the chair. Kieran brought me a blanket. That's not sleeping, that's suffering horizontally adjacent. Despite everything, his mouth twitched. You're starting to sound like me. That's the mate bond. It's making us weird. Weirder, he corrected. We sat in silence for a moment. I could feel the bond between us, stronger now, more solid. The claiming had taken hold during my heat, even though we'd both tried to keep it temporary. The universe had other plans. So, I said carefully. We're actually bonded now. For real. For real. Not temporary. Not temporary. I'm going to be Luna Queen. If you want to be. Thorn leaned forward, his ice blue eyes intense. Eris, I know this isn't what you wanted. I know you were planning to leave after 7 days. If you want to break the bond. Can we even do that now? There are ways. They're painful and complicated, but possible. I thought about it. About going back to my moldy apartment, my expired ramen, my life of chronic bad luck and worse decisions. Then I thought about Kieran's smile, about Thorn's dorky jigsaw puzzles, about how somewhere in the chaos of the last week, this place had started to feel like home. What if I don't want to break it? I asked quietly. Thorn's breath caught. Then we don't. Even though I'm a disaster? Especially because you're a disaster. You challenged Cassius to combat with zero training. You stress eat during political dinners. You tried to clean the throne room yourself because you felt bad for the servants. You're chaos incarnate. He smiled, soft and genuine. And I love you for it. My heart did a complicated flip. You love me? I think I started loving you when Kieran told me you gave him your last towel. The good one. Thorn brought my hand to his lips, kissing my knuckles gently. You could have turned him away. You could have called authorities immediately. But you didn't. You took care of him even though it cost you everything. That's who you are. And I love you. I was crying. Stupid healing hormones making me emotional. I love you too, I whispered. Even though you're a dork who does jigsaw puzzles and ugly cries at sad movies. You promised never to mention the movie thing. I lied. He laughed, actually laughed, and leaned forward to kiss me. It was gentle, careful, like he was afraid I might break. I'm not made of glass, I murmured against his lips. You were thrown into a wall 2 days ago. Details. The door burst open. Kieran ran in, still wearing his pajamas, palace pajamas, I noted, which were significantly nicer than my old, I'm fine, shirt, and launched himself at the bed. You're awake. You're awake. Dad said you might sleep for a week, but I knew you'd wake up sooner because you're tough and, are you kissing? Are you doing kissing? Thorn pulled back, his ears turning red. Kieran. Does this mean you're actually bonded now? Not just pretend bonded? How do you know it was pretend? I asked. I'm 7, not stupid. You were both being weird about it. Kieran climbed onto the bed, careful of my injuries. So? Are you actually my new mom now? I looked at Thorn. He looked at me. We both looked at Kieran's hopeful face. Yeah, I said softly. I guess I am. Kieran's resulting squeal probably woke up half the palace. 7 days earlier, because we need to know how we got here. The claiming ceremony happened 3 hours after my heat broke. I was still shaky, still processing, still trying to wrap my head around the fact that I was apparently true mates with the Alpha King. Thorn had given me space during the heat, stayed in a completely different wing of the palace, suffering through the separation because he was determined to be honorable about this whole disaster. Sarah had brought me food, water, and updates. Apparently the court was in an uproar. The Alpha King finding his true mate was major news. The fact that she was a broke, unmated Omega with no pack affiliation was causing scandals. They're calling you a gold digger, Sarah reported cheerfully. Also a social climber, a scheming Omega, and, this is my favorite, a poverty-stricken Jezebel. Wow. That's creative. The court has nothing better to do than gossip. They'll get over it. But they didn't get over it. Because the next morning, Cassius formally challenged the bond, claiming I was unsuitable to be Luna Queen and demanding a review by the council. That's when Thorne showed up at my door looking like he'd made a decision. "We're doing the claiming," he announced. "What?" "The formal claiming ceremony. Today. It's the only way to protect you legally from the council." He ran his hand through his hair. I was learning that was his anxiety tell. "If we're formally claimed as mates, Cassius can't touch you. Pack law protects the Luna. But we agreed it was temporary. It'll still be temporary. The claiming can expire in 7 days if we don't complete the bond. We just..." He looked uncomfortable. "We have to make it look real. For a week. Can you do that?" I thought about Cassius's cold eyes. About Pack services and how they'd treated me before. About being powerless and alone. "Yeah," I said. "I can do that. It'll mean living in the palace. Sharing my quarters. Pretending to be..." He gestured vaguely between us. "Together. For a week. For a week." We shook on it like we were sealing a business deal, not agreeing to fake date for political protection. I should have known better. I should have known the universe wasn't done laughing at us. Palace life was a nightmare wrapped in luxury and served with a side of acute social anxiety. First problem, I didn't know which fork to use. Ever. There were like 17 forks at dinner and I was pretty sure at least 3 of them were decorative. "That's a seafood fork," Thorne whispered during my first formal dinner. "We're eating chicken." "I know. Just put it down." Second problem, I kept trying to clean things myself. The servants thought I was insulting their competence. I was just stressed and needed something to do with my hands. "Miss Moretti," the head housekeeper said gently, "you don't need to dust the throne room." "But it's dusty." "That's what we're for." "I know, but I'm just standing here and it's right there, Anne. Please stop dusting the throne room." "Okay." I put down the dust cloth. 5 minutes later, I was reorganizing the library because the books weren't alphabetized properly. The librarian found me and politely asked me to stop helping. Third problem, I accidentally insulted a visiting duchess. "Your dress is so interesting," I said brightly, trying to make conversation. The duchess's face froze. "Interesting?" "Yeah. It's very bold. With the colors. And the ruffles. So many ruffles." Thorne kicked me under the table. Later, in our quarters, which were shared quarters, which was a whole other source of anxiety, he explained that interesting was code for hideous in court speak. I didn't mean it like that. I protested. "I know. But she didn't. How was I supposed to know? I don't speak passive-aggressive nobility." "You'll learn." Except I didn't learn. I kept making mistakes. During a formal tea, I used the wrong spoon. At a state dinner, I laughed too loud at someone's joke. At a garden party, I tried to pet someone's service dog and apparently that was inappropriate. "Everything is inappropriate," I complained to Thorne. "Breathing is probably inappropriate. Only if you do it wrong. That's not helpful." But through it all, Kieran was there. He followed me everywhere, cheerfully pointing out when I was about to commit a social faux pas, usually too late to prevent it, and offering running commentary on court politics. "That's Duke Pemberton. He's boring and smells like old cheese." "That's Lady Westbrook. She's nice but talks too much about her cats." "That's Cassius. He's evil. Don't trust him." "Kieran, you can't just call the royal advisor evil." "But he is. He keeps looking at Dad like he wants to stab him." Kid had good instincts. The worst part, or best part, depending on your perspective, was sharing quarters with Thorne. His rooms were enormous. Bigger than 3 of my old apartments combined. There was a bedroom the size of a ballroom, a bathroom with a tub you could swim in, a sitting room with a fireplace, and approximately 17 closets. "You can take the bed," Thorne said immediately. "I'll sleep on the couch." "That's ridiculous. It's your bed. You're recovering from heat. You need proper rest. So do you. You're the alpha king. You can't sleep on a couch." "I've slept on worse." "When?" "Military training. I spent 3 weeks sleeping in a ditch." That's not the same thing." We argued about it for an hour. Finally compromised, he'd sleep on the floor with about 17 blankets and pillows to make it comfortable. It lasted one night. I woke up at 2 a.m. to use the bathroom and found him still awake, staring at the ceiling, looking miserable. "This is stupid," I said. "What?" "You're sleeping on the floor. In your own room. Because of some arbitrary sense of chivalry. I'm trying to be respectful. It's a huge bed. We can share it. Like adults. Without it being weird." Famous last words. We shared the bed. It was immediately weird. Not bad weird. Just weird. Thorne was very careful to stay on his side. I was very careful to stay on mine. We built a pillow wall between us like middle schoolers at a sleepover. The pillow wall lasted 3 nights. On night 4, I woke up curled against his chest, his arm around me, both of us sleeping peacefully for the first time in weeks. "This doesn't mean anything," I mumbled when I realized where I was. "Absolutely nothing," Thorne agreed, not moving. "It's just the mate bond. Making us comfortable with each other. Completely biological. We're still breaking it in 7 days. Definitely." Neither of us moved. The thing about fake dating is that it starts to feel real around day 3. We'd finish each other's sentences. Crave the same foods. Reach for each other without thinking. The mate bond was syncing us up in ways that were annoying and endearing in equal measure. I was thinking about pasta for dinner? Thorne guessed. "How did you know?" "Because I was thinking the same thing. Also, you've been staring at the menu for 5 minutes and circling back to the pasta section. It's good pasta. It's excellent pasta. We ordered pasta." I also discovered that Thorne was a huge dork. Like, massive dork. He did jigsaw puzzles to relax. Had a whole room dedicated to them. We're talking 1,000-piece puzzles of landscapes and paintings and abstract patterns. "This is your secret hobby?" I asked, watching him carefully place a piece of sky. "It's calming. It's adorable. It's strategic. Pattern recognition, spatial reasoning. It's adorable," I repeated. He threw a puzzle piece at me. Even better, he ugly cried at sad movies. We watched one night after Kieran went to bed, some drama about a dog, and I looked over to find the alpha king, terror of the territory, crying into a throw pillow. "Are you okay?" "The dog died, Eris." "It's a movie." The dog didn't know that. I promised never to mention it. I lied. But I also started investigating. Because something about Cassius bothered me. The way he'd pushed so hard to prosecute me. The way he kept trying to undermine my position. The way Kieran said he looked at Thorne like he wanted to stab him. I started digging through palace records. Asked Sarah to show me the archives. Looked into the late Luna Queen's death. Officially, she died in childbirth. Complications. Tragic but natural. Except the medical reports didn't match. The symptoms were all wrong. And there were financial discrepancies. Large sums of money moving through accounts connected to Cassius. "I think Cassius killed your first wife," I told Thorne on day 5. He looked up from his jigsaw puzzle. "What?" "The medical reports don't match her symptoms. The money trail leads back to him. And I think he's been embezzling from the pack treasury to fund something. I'm not sure what yet." Thorn's face went very still. You're investigating the Queen's death? Someone should. Don't you want to know what really happened? He set down his puzzle piece. I assumed it was my fault. That I didn't protect her well enough. Thorn, no. This wasn't your fault. This was murder. Planned and executed. I grabbed his hand. We need to prove it. Before he tries something else. Like what? As if on cue, there was an explosion in the East Wing. The assassination attempt was subtle. A gas leak that just happened to occur near the royal quarters. If we'd been sleeping in our usual rooms, we would have died. Thankfully, Kieran had convinced us to have a sleepover in his rooms that night, which were in the West Wing, because he wanted to show us his collection of rocks. This one is very smooth. This one looks like a potato. We survived. Barely. This was Cassius, I said, watching guards secure the area. You don't know that. Who else? He's been trying to get rid of me since day one. Now he's escalating. Thorn looked at the destroyed wing, his face grim. We need proof. I'm working on it. The proof came 2 days later, during the Blood Moon ceremony. The Blood Moon was a big deal, a ceremony where pack bonds were renewed, disputes were settled, and the Alpha reaffirmed their leadership. Everyone attended. Everyone dressed up. Everyone pretended to care about tradition while secretly gossiping about the Alpha King's inappropriate new mate. I wore a dress. An actual formal dress. Sarah had helped me pick it out, midnight blue, elegant but not too fancy, with exactly 0 ruffles. You look beautiful, Thorn said when he saw me. I looked terrified. That too. The ceremony started at sunset. The pack gathered in the Great Hall, hundreds of werewolves, all watching as Thorn performed the traditional rites. It should have been boring. Instead, it was nerve-wracking because I could feel something building. Something bad. Cassius stepped forward during the dispute section. I invoked traditional challenge. The hall went silent. On what grounds? Thorn asked carefully. On the grounds that the Luna Queen is cursed. Cassius pulled out a scroll. I have proof that Eris Moretti carries a bloodline curse. Anyone bonded to her will die within the year. The previous Luna Queen died because of proximity to this bloodline. If the Alpha King remains bonded to her, he will die as well. The crowd erupted. Gasps, whispers, someone screamed. I felt my stomach drop. That's not true, I said loudly. The evidence is here. Cassius held up the scroll. Ancient bloodline records. Her family has been cursed for generations. Let me see that. Thorn reached for the scroll. Cassius pulled it back. Pack law states that cursed individuals cannot hold positions of power. The Luna Queen must step down immediately. That's fake, I said. There's no curse. He's making this up. Then prove it. Cassius smiled. I invoke trial by combat. If you're truly fit to be Luna, defend your position. Oh, gods. Trial by combat. The ancient werewolf tradition where disputes were settled through fighting. Winner was right. Loser was wrong. Very simple. Very violent. I accept, I heard myself say. The hall erupted again. Thorn grabbed my arm. Eris, no. He's lying. I need to prove it. You can't even open a jar without help. I'm trying my best, okay? But it was too late. The challenge was issued. The combat was accepted. And I had approximately 30 minutes to prepare before I had to fight the royal advisor who'd murdered the last queen and was definitely planning to murder me. I'm going to die, I told Sarah while she helped me into combat gear. Probably. That's not comforting. You asked for honesty. The combat arena was packed. Everyone wanted to see the inappropriate Luna get destroyed by the royal advisor. It was the social event of the season. I stepped into the ring. Cassius was already there, looking confident and smug. "Any last words?" he asked. "Yeah. You're under arrest for embezzlement, murder, and being a general terrible person. You'll have to prove that." "Already did. Sent all the evidence to the council this morning. You're done." His face went pale. Then red. Then absolutely murderous. "You meddling little." The combat started. I lasted approximately 30 seconds before realizing I was completely outmatched. Cassius was trained. Experienced. Fast. I was none of those things. He hit me. I went flying. Hit the ground hard enough to see stars. "Stay down," he snarled. I got up. He hit me again. I crashed into the arena wall. I said stay down. I got up again. "You know," I gasped, "for someone who's definitely guilty of murder and embezzlement, you're being really obvious about it." "Shut up. Did you think no one would notice? The money transfers? The medical inconsistencies? The convenient accidents?" I said shut up. He charged. I dodged, barely. My ribs were screaming. Pretty sure one was cracked. "You killed the queen," I continued. "Because she found out about your embezzlement. You've been stealing from the pack for years, funding some kind of coup, and she discovered it. You can't prove anything." "Actually, I can. Sent all the financial records to the council. They're reviewing them right now." Cassius's control snapped. "You stupid little Omega. You've ruined everything. Years of planning. The queen was supposed to die quietly. Thorn was supposed to fall apart. And I was supposed to take control when he inevitably failed." The entire arena went silent. "Did you just..." I wheezed. "Did you just villain monologue? I'm going to kill you." He charged again. This time I couldn't dodge. He grabbed me, lifted me, and threw me into the wall hard enough to crack the stone. I heard Thorn roar. Heard fighting. But it sounded far away. I was sliding down the wall when I felt it. A surge of power. Not mine. Kieran's. The 7-year-old alpha heir stood at the edge of the arena, eyes blazing gold, power rolling off him in waves that made the ground shake. "Don't touch my MOM." His voice boomed through the arena. Through the palace. Through the entire pack mental network. And with it came images. Memories. Everything Cassius had just confessed, broadcasted to every werewolf in range. The embezzlement. The murder. The coup. All of it, shared through Kieran's emerging alpha power in a way that couldn't be denied or hidden. Cassius looked around at the hundreds of shocked faces, finally understanding what had happened. "No," he whispered. "Yes," I said from my position crumpled against the wall. "Also, you're under arrest. Again. But with more witnesses this time." Then I passed out. Which brought me back to the medical wing, 2 days later, waking up to Thorn holding my hand and Kieran bringing blankets. We'd won. Cassius was arrested. The coup was foiled. And somewhere between fake dating and solving murders, I'd fallen in love with a dorky alpha king and his powerful son. "So," I said, still holding Thorn's hand. "We're really doing this?" "If you want to." "I want to. Even though you'll be Luna Queen. I'll do it my way. No fancy airs. Just me. Taking care of the pack. Making terrible jokes. Probably insulting visiting dignitaries on accident." Thorn smiled. "Perfect." We completed the mate bond that night. It was private, intimate, and absolutely nothing like the dramatic claiming ceremony. Just us, choosing each other, making it real. The coronation happened a week later. I wore a crown. An actual crown. It was heavy and uncomfortable and I kept forgetting it was there. "You're fidgeting," Thorn whispered. It's itchy. You can't scratch your head during the coronation. Watch me. I didn't scratch. But I wanted to. The ceremony was long, formal, and full of traditions I barely understood. But Kieran stood beside me the whole time, holding my hand, occasionally whispering explanations. Now you're supposed to bow. No, the other way. There you go. When it was finally over, when I was officially Luna Queen, the pack erupted in applause. Some of it was genuine. Some of it was definitely still judging me. I didn't care. I had a mate who did jigsaw puzzles and ugly cried at movies. I had a son who could level buildings with his emerging alpha power. I had a pack that needed someone who actually gave a damn. I could do this. I was doing this. Your Majesty, Sarah said, approaching with refreshments. How does it feel? Weird. Good weird. But weird. You'll get used to it. Probably not. I scanned the crowd, watching pack members mingle and celebrate. That's when I saw her. A woman standing at the edge of the crowd. Dark hair, elegant features, and eyes that were exactly, like the late Luna Queen's eyes from the portraits. I grabbed Thorne's arm. Is it normal for dead people to attend parties? What? Because I think your dead wife is here. I'm sorry, what? I pointed. The woman was still there, watching us with an expression I couldn't read. When she saw us looking, she smiled, sad and knowing, and disappeared into the crowd. We pushed through the people, trying to follow. But she was gone. Did you see that? I asked. I saw something. Thorne looked shaken. But it couldn't have been. It looked exactly like her. The portraits. The eyes. My wife is dead. We buried her. I know. But. We stood there, in the middle of my coronation celebration, staring at the spot where a ghost, or something, had just disappeared. Kieran tugged my dress. Mom? What's wrong? Nothing, baby. Just, thought I saw something. Was it the lady? We both looked at him. What lady? The one who visits sometimes. She looks like the paintings of my old mom. She's nice. She tells me stories about Dad when he was young. Thorne and I exchanged looks. Kieran, Thorne said carefully. How long have you been seeing this lady? Since Mom died. She said she was watching over me. That she'd make sure I was okay. He smiled. And then she sent me to find Eris. In the puddle. She said Eris would help. My blood ran cold. She sent you to the puddle? I asked. Uh-huh. I was lost and she pointed me toward your street. Said someone there would take care of me. Thorne's face had gone pale. That's not possible. It's very possible, Kieran said matter-of-factly. She's magic. Dead magic. We stood there, the three of us, processing this information while the coronation celebration continued around us. Somewhere in the crowd, a dead queen was watching. And smiling. The end, or is it? Epilogue. 6 months later. The thing about being Luna Queen is that nobody tells you about the paperwork. Seriously. Mountains of it. Budget reports, territory disputes, pack registration forms, requests for audience, complaints about neighbors' werewolves howling too loud at 3 a.m., all of it requiring my signature, my attention, my decision. I was drowning in paperwork when Kieran burst into my office wearing a cape made from my good towel, the one I'd given him that first night, which he'd refused to give back, and wielding a wooden sword. Mom. I've defeated the dragon. That's great, honey. Which dragon? The one in the East Garden. It was terrorizing the roses. Pretty sure that was the head gardener pruning. He said I was very helpful. I'm sure he did. I signed another form without reading it. Probably a mistake. Where's your father? Doing puzzles. He said he needed to decompress because Duke Pemberton talked about cheese for 45 minutes during the council meeting. I snorted. Poor Thorn. Duke Pemberton really did talk about cheese a lot. Tell him dinner's in an hour. And please give me back my good towel. It's my cape now. Kieran. You gave it to me. No take-backs. He ran off, cape flowing behind him, before I could argue. That kid was getting too good at negotiating. I turned back to my paperwork, but couldn't focus. Something had been nagging at me for weeks now. Little things. Weird things. Flowers appearing on the Queen's memorial when no one had been there. Kieran's nightmares stopping suddenly after he said, the nice lady told them to go away. The portrait of the late Queen in the gallery, I swear it smiled at me yesterday. And then there was the woman I'd seen at the coronation. The one who looked exactly like Thorne's dead wife. I'd tried to investigate. Asked questions. Looked into records. But there was nothing. No explanation. No answers. Just a feeling that we were being watched over by something, someone, who wasn't quite ready to let go. Dinner was chaotic, as always. Thorne had invited half the council over, which meant I had to use the right forks, still a struggle, and make small talk, also a struggle, while not accidentally insulting anyone, my biggest struggle. And then the market prices fluctuated because of the seasonal variations in, Duke Pemberton was saying. I zoned out. Focused on my food. Tried not to fall asleep in my soup. Which brings us to the cheese tariffs, of course. Thorne kicked me under the table. I jerked awake. Fascinating, I said automatically. You weren't listening, were you? Duchess Hartfield asked, amused. I was listening spiritually. She laughed. The other council members looked scandalized. Thorne hid his smile behind his wine glass. This was my life now. Fancy dinners where I said inappropriate things and somehow it was endearing instead of career-ending. Being Luna Queen suited me in the weirdest way possible. After dinner, Thorne and I escaped to our quarters. Kieran was already asleep. Sarah had handled bedtime duty tonight, bless her, and we had the evening to ourselves. Cheese tariffs, I said, collapsing onto the couch. He talked about cheese tariffs for 20 minutes. 18 minutes. I was counting. That's not better. Thorne sat beside me, pulling me against his chest. I curled into him automatically now. The mate bond had settled into something comfortable, warm, right. You did well tonight, he murmured into my hair. I fell asleep during the economic report. Only for a minute. And you woke up before you started snoring. I don't snore. You absolutely snore. That's slander against the Luna Queen. I could have you arrested. Please do. I could use a vacation. We sat in comfortable silence, just breathing together. These were my favorite moments, when we didn't have to be the Alpha King and Luna Queen, when we could just be Thorne and Eris, two people who'd found each other in the most chaotic way possible. I saw her again, I said quietly. Thorne tensed. Where? In the garden. This morning. She was standing by the memorial, looking at the roses. I played with the buttons on his shirt. She looked so sad, Thorne. So lonely. What did you do? I walked toward her. But she disappeared. Like she always does. I looked up at him. Do you think she's really here? Or am I losing my mind? Kieran sees her too. So either we're all losing our minds, or... He trailed off. Or she's really here. Somehow. We'd had this conversation a dozen times over the past 6 months. Never came to any conclusions. How do you investigate a ghost? How do you talk to someone who's dead but also maybe not dead? Who watches over your family but never stays long enough to explain? I want to talk to her, I said. I want to understand what's happening. So do I. Tomorrow. Let's try again tomorrow. Okay. But tomorrow came and went with no sign of the mysterious woman. So did the next day. And the next. Until the night of Kieran's 8th birthday. We threw Kieran a party. A real party, not a fancy royal affair, but an actual kid's birthday party with games and cake and too much sugar. We'd invited his friends from the pack school, set up activities in the garden, and generally let chaos reign. Kieran was thriving. His alpha power had stabilized under careful training, and he'd grown confident, happy, so different from the scared little boy I'd found in that puddle 6 months ago. Mom. Watch this. He demonstrated a cartwheel. It was terrible. I applauded anyway. Amazing. You're a natural. I know. He ran off to show his friends. Thorn appeared at my elbow, holding 2 glasses of wine. You're good with him. He's easy to love. So are you. I turned to kiss him, but froze. Over his shoulder, standing at the edge of the garden, was the woman. The late queen. She was clearer this time. More solid. And she was looking directly at me with an expression of profound sadness and hope. Thorn, I whispered. Don't turn around quickly. But she's here. He went very still. Where? By the roses. She's staying this time. Slowly, carefully, Thorn turned. I heard his breath catch when he saw her. Lyra, he whispered. The woman, Lyra, smiled. It was tender and heartbreaking all at once. Then she looked at me and mouthed 2 words, thank you. For what? I called out. She gestured toward Kieran, playing with his friends. Toward Thorn, standing beside me. Toward the life we'd built together. I don't understand, I said, stepping forward. Why are you here? What's happening? Lyra's form flickered, like she was struggling to stay visible. When she spoke, her voice came from everywhere and nowhere. I couldn't leave. Not completely. Not when they needed me. Her eyes, those honey-colored eyes that Kieran had inherited, were full of love. I stayed. In the in-between. Watching. Waiting. For what? Thorn asked, his voice rough with emotion. For someone who would love them the way they deserved. Who would fight for them. Who would be brave enough to take on an alpha king and a grieving child and make them a family again. She looked at me. I waited for you, Eris. My throat closed up. I don't understand. That night. When Kieran got lost. He didn't get lost by accident. Lyra's smile was gentle. I guided him. To that street. To that puddle. To you. But why? Because I knew. I knew you were his true mate. She gestured to Thorn. I knew you would save him from his grief. Save Kieran from loneliness. Save our pack from Cassius's poison. Her voice softened. I knew you would love them better than I ever could. That's not true, I said, tears streaming down my face. You were his wife. Kieran's mother. I'm just. You're his true mate. His destiny. And you're the mother Kieran needs now. Lyra's form flickered again, growing more transparent. I was good for Thorn when he needed someone strong. But you're good for who he is now. Who he's becoming. Thorn made a broken sound. Lyra, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I couldn't save you. You have nothing to be sorry for. Cassius poisoned me. Slowly. Carefully. By the time you realized something was wrong, it was too late. She looked at him with such love. But I stopped it from hurting you. I made sure you and Kieran survived. That's all that mattered. You were murdered and all you cared about was us? Thorn's voice cracked. Of course. I loved you. I still love you. Lyra's form was fading now, growing dimmer. But that life is over. And you deserve to be happy again. Both of you deserve Eris. Wait, I said desperately. Please don't go. We have so many questions. I know. But I can't stay much longer. The in-between is calling me back. She looked at Kieran, still playing with his friends, oblivious to the conversation happening at the edge of the garden. Tell him I'm proud of him. Tell him I'll always watch over him, even if he can't see me anymore. He'll be heartbroken, Thorn said. He'll be okay. Because he has you. And Eris. Lyra looked at me. Take care of them. Love them. Be the family I couldn't be anymore. I will. I promise. I know you will. That's why I chose you. Her smile was radiant now, despite fading away. You were exactly what they needed. A chaotic, brave, ridiculous Omega who would challenge an advisor to combat with zero training and somehow solve a murder while stress-eating expired ramen. Despite everything, I laughed through my tears. You were watching all of that? Every moment. It was better than any romance novel. She was almost transparent now, barely visible. Be happy, Eris. You've earned it. You've all earned it. Thank you, I whispered. For trusting me with them. Thank you for loving them. And then she was gone. Completely gone. The garden felt emptier somehow. Colder. Like a warm presence had just left. Thorn pulled me into his arms and we held each other while crying. Grieving for the woman who'd loved him first, who'd sacrificed everything to protect her family, who'd somehow found a way to bring us together from beyond death itself. She was extraordinary, I said. She was. And so are you. I'm not. Eris. You challenged Cassius to combat. You solved her murder. You brought joy back to this palace. You made Kieran laugh again. You made me believe in love again. He cupped my face, wiping away tears. You're extraordinary. And I love you so much it terrifies me. I love you too. Even though you're a dork who does jigsaw puzzles. Especially because I'm a dork who does jigsaw puzzles. We kissed while children played and the sun set, and somewhere, in the in-between, a queen finally found peace. That night, after the party, after the cleanup, after putting an exhausted and sugar-crashed Kieran to bed, we told him about his mother. He took it better than expected. I know she had to go, he said, snuggled between us in the big bed. She told me. Last week. She said she was proud of me and that she loved me, but she needed to rest now. You talked to her? Thorn asked. Uh-huh. She visits my dreams sometimes. She said you found her replacement. He looked at me. She said you're exactly what we needed. She said that? Yep. She said you're chaotic and ridiculous, but in a good way. Kieran yawned. I think so too. You're the best mom. Even if you are bad at combat and use the wrong forks. Thanks, kid. You're welcome. He fell asleep between us, peaceful and content. Thorn and I looked at each other over his head, both of us thinking the same thing. We'd been chosen. By a dead queen who'd loved her family enough to find them a future. Who'd orchestrated our meeting from beyond the grave. Who'd trusted a broke, unlucky Omega with her most precious people. She picked well, Thorn whispered. She picked desperately, I corrected. I was literally the only person who found him. She picked perfectly. Maybe he was right. Maybe Lyra had seen something in me that I didn't see in myself. The courage to help a lost child even when it cost me everything. The stubborn determination to protect what I loved. The chaotic energy to challenge an entire court and somehow win. Or maybe she'd just seen an Omega who would love her family the way they deserved. Either way, I was grateful. 1 year later. The memorial garden was finished. We'd built it in honor of Queen Lyra, a beautiful space with roses, her favorite, a fountain, benches for reflection, and a statue of her holding baby Kieran. It was peaceful. Healing. A place where we could remember without drowning in grief. The dedication ceremony was small. Just family and close friends. Kieran read a speech he'd written himself about his 2 moms, one who gave him life, one who taught him how to live it. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. Afterward, we sat together on one of the benches. Me, Thorn, and Kieran. Our little family. Do you think she's happy? Kieran asked. Wherever she is? I think so, I said. I think she's at peace. Good. She deserves peace. He leaned against me. I'm glad she sent me to find you. Even if you are bad at everything royal. Hey. It's true. You used the wrong spoon again at dinner last night. That spoon was decorative. There's no such thing as decorative spoons, Mom. Thorn was laughing. I elbowed him. Don't encourage him. But he's right. You're both terrible. But I was smiling. Because this ridiculous, chaotic, perfect family, was mine. We'd been built from grief and chance and a dead queen's matchmaking. We'd survived assassination attempts and court intrigue and my complete inability to learn proper fork etiquette. And we were happy. I have news, I said carefully. They both looked at me. What kind of news? Thorn asked. The good kind. I hope. I took a deep breath. I'm pregnant. Silence. Then Kieran's shriek of joy probably woke up half the territory. I'm going to be a big brother. He launched himself at me, hugging me so hard I couldn't breathe. Thorn was right behind him, pulling us both into his arms, his face buried in my hair. A baby, he whispered. We're having a baby. We're having a baby, I confirmed. Is it going to be as chaotic as you? Kieran asked hopefully. Probably. Yes. We sat there in the memorial garden, the 3 of us, soon to be 4, laughing and crying and planning. The roses bloomed around us. The fountain bubbled. And for just a moment, I swear I felt a warm presence, like someone was standing behind us, smiling. Thank you, I thought toward the sky, toward whatever lay beyond. Thank you for trusting me with them. The breeze picked up, carrying the scent of roses and something else. Something that felt like approval. Like love. Like a blessing from a queen who'd loved her family enough to let them go. Look, Kieran said, pointing. A single white rose had appeared on Lyra's statue. Fresh. Perfect. Definitely not there a moment ago. We looked at each other and smiled. She's happy for us, Thorn said. She better be, I said. She's the one who started all this. Best matchmaker ever, Kieran declared. We stayed in the garden until sunset, talking about baby names and nursery colors and how Kieran was definitely old enough to help with diaper duty. He disagreed. The palace rose behind us, no longer cold and grief-stricken, but warm with life and laughter. I thought about the girl I used to be. The broke Omega with nothing but expired ramen and a leaking ceiling. Who could barely keep herself alive, let alone imagine having a family. And now look at me. Luna Queen. Mate to an alpha king. Mother to a powerful heir and a baby on the way. Living in a palace, surviving court politics, still using the wrong forks but doing it with confidence. Life was strange. Life was chaotic. Life was absolutely nothing like I'd planned. It was perfect. I love you, Thorn murmured, pulling me close. I love you too. Even though you cry at dog movies. You promised never to mention that. I lied. Kieran giggled. The sun set. The white rose on Lyra's statue glowed in the fading light. And somewhere, in the in-between, a queen rested easy knowing her family was whole again. The end. For real this time. Author's note. Sometimes the people we love find ways to love us back, even after they're gone. Sometimes the universe conspires to bring the right people together at exactly the right moment. And sometimes the best families are built from chaos, expired ramen, and a little bit of magic. Thank you for reading Eris and Thorn's story. May you all find your own chaotic, perfect, ridiculous love story. And may you always use the right fork. Just kidding. There's no right fork. It's all made up. Use whatever fork you want.